per household.
News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KVNU.
KVNU News Time is 4:03. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by Logan Extermination. Companies have promised widespread drone delivery and even personal air taxis in the near future, and the Utah Department of Transportation is helping pave the way. UDOT says it recently launched the state's first air taxi from what they call a vertiport in collaboration with Utah State University. A vertiport is a defined area used for aircraft that will carry packages and people in the future. Vertiports can range in type from parking lots to the tops of office buildings, airports to industrial complexes. Paul Damron, UDOT Advanced Air Mobility Manager, said they plan to create a well-functioning transportation system in the air that connects safely and seamlessly with the transportation system on the ground. Supporters of the system said the demonstration shows how aircraft can take off and land near homes and businesses without many negative impacts. In his fiscal year 2025 budget, Governor Cox identified $1.9 million in state funding for aerial transportation investments, and the Utah legislature funded the request. Dr. Brent Chamberlain, USU Associate Professor in Landscape Architecture and Environmental Planning, said their main objective was to identify locations for air taxis and air package delivery that minimize impacts to homes and businesses while balancing safety and opportunity. UDOT officials said it is developing a regulatory sandbox to test advanced air mobility technologies statewide. KVNU News Time is 4:05. KVNU weather for tonight, rain showers developing and a slight chance of thunderstorms this evening, then a chance of rain and snow showers after midnight. Little or no accumulation. Overnight low in the mid-30s. We will have west winds gusting up to around 20 miles per hour this evening. Slight chance of rain and snow showers Thursday morning, then a slight chance of rain showers in the afternoon, but also some sunshine. High temperature in the upper 50s. Mostly clear Thursday night, sunny to partly sunny on Friday, warmer into the upper 60s. That's where we've been today, and right now it is 68 degrees at KVNU. Hey, if you're a do-it-yourselfer, then your locally owned Napa Auto Parts is a good place to know. All the best brands, Croyle, Amsoil, Schaefer, BG, and Seafoam. Also, Trico and Rain-X wiper blades, and Legend premium batteries at your 5 locations of Napa Auto Parts from Preston to Providence.
Do you have a nasty weed problem? We have the right person for you. Sir, you work for Logan Extermination, don't you? Can you help these folks get rid of pesky dandelions?
Of course I can help. I am the Terminator. I will terminate those little yellow devils in your yard. Call me at Logan Extermination, 752-8450.
May special. Terminate your weeds and green up your lawn for only $45, based on maximum 5,000 square feet.
KVNU News Time is 4:06. Saturday in Garden City, Utah State University will host a community event to share the preliminary results of a 6-month research study on Bear Lake tourism. The project includes interviews with more than 40 different scientists, community members, and nonprofit representatives to better understand the impact of increased tourism on Bear Lake ecosystems and communities. Betsy Bruner, who directed the research, said Saturday's event will allow those attending to understand what they can do to preserve and protect Bear Lake. Questions about long-term sustainability have grown from the lake's popularity, and project leaders say research findings will address concerns related to the lake's ecosystems. The project was led by USU students and researchers from sociology and anthropology and communication studies and philosophy. The Utah Division of Forestry, Fire, and State Lands funded the project through USU's Institute for Land, Water, and Air. The event is open to anyone interested beginning at 11:30 a.m. Saturday, the 25th, at the City Hall Lakeview Room, Building C, at 69 North Paradise Parkway in Garden City. A woman was rescued after being injured when her hair got tangled in a rappelling device in a Moab Canyon. Grand County teams responded to the bow and arrow canyoneering route just before 9 o'clock Monday night. As they arrived, officials helped the woman, who was approximately 50 years old, get free from the device and lowered her to stable ground. They said the canyoneering group she was with had administered initial care and bandaged her injuries. The woman was placed safely into a litter as rescue crew said they navigated her through a multi-stage complex rope system amidst challenging windy and rainy conditions. Everyone left the scene by 1 a.m. Grand County EMS extended their gratitude to other agencies for their intricate lowering system executed under tough conditions. They also commend the prepared canyoneering companions for their calm and effective response in attending to their injured friend and aiding in the rescue effort. And as this year's primary approaches, supporters of a voter initiative in Idaho hope future primaries will look different. Idaho's primaries were held on Tuesday. Earlier this month, supporters of the open primary initiative exceeded the number of signatures needed to appear on the November ballot and are awaiting verification. The measure would get rid of the state's closed primary system. Margaret Kinzel with Mormon Women for Ethical Government says a small percentage of voters in primaries aligned with the state's dominant Republican Party essentially decide elections.
So if you want to have any voice at all on who your elected officials will be, you have to vote in the Republican primary. And with it being closed, you have to align with the Republican Party.
Kinzel says under the current primary system, less moderate candidates have a better shot at winning. She says the Open Primaries Initiative would change that.
To promote more civil discourse, you have to appeal to a broader range of voters in order to make it through both the primary and the general election. And we're just hoping that that's going to create more conversations between candidates and their constituents.
Kinzel says a tenet of her faith in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints includes the respect and dignity of each individual. KBNU News Time is 4:10. For more details on these and other stories, visit CashValleyDaily.com.
Covering the news that affects your life. News Talk KVNU, 610 AM, 102.1 FM, and online at 610kvnu.com.
Cache Valley Cruising.
Cache Valley's biggest summer party is almost here. The Cache Valley Cruise-In, July 4th, 5th, and 6th at the Cache County Fairground. This year, the Cruise-In is going Motown with the Commodores. And opening act, the Temptations Review, featuring the legacy of Dennis Edwards. This year, all seats are assigned. So buy your tickets now to ensure you get the best seats available. The giveaway car is a beautifully restored 1950 Ford F3 pickup. And your ticket to the car show is your chance to win the truck. 3 days of fun includes the annual poker run, Women's World, Top Rod of Utah, a sock hop, and more.
Cache Valley Cruising. Cache Valley Cruising.
July 4th, 5th, and 6th at the Cache County Fairgrounds.
I'm Jason Walton, the only Republican political outsider running for the United States Senate. Are you tired of paying more but getting less? Food, gas, interest rates, they've all gone up. Sending more career politicians to Washington is not the solution. They're the problem. They're addicted to spending money we don't have on things we don't need. They're causing inflation as the federal debt goes up and the value of our money goes down. My opponents are big spending career politicians. Trent Staggs, 11 years politicking. Brad Wilson, 14 years. And John Curtis, as a Democrat, began 24 years ago. I'll stop runaway inflation by forcing politicians to spend only what we give them by passing a balanced budget amendment within 2 terms, or I won't run for re-election. If the other candidates won't make you that promise, then they care more about their careers than about our country. I'm Jason Walton, a candidate for the United States Senate, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Friends of Jason Walton for Senate. With the arrival of spring, Cache Stormwater Coalition wants to remind us all of 5 simple things we can do to improve our local water source. Pick up and dispose of pet waste. Sweep up and remove loose grass clippings or leaves from sidewalks and hard surfaces. Sweep fertilizers or other lawn chemicals back onto the grassy areas. Wash equipment or vehicles on the grass or at your favorite local professional car wash. And properly dispose of used automotive fluids or dry up and clean up any spills or leaks. We can all make a difference if we do our part. Brought to you by the Cache Stormwater Coalition.
Hi, this is Ryan Leishman with Aero Fence. With over 75 years combined experience in design and construction of fences, we're looking forward to helping you find the right solution to your commercial or residential fencing projects. At Aero Fence, we offer professional consulting to help you find the exact design, structure, and materials for your project. We're confident Aero Fence can provide you with the quality and value you expect. We can help you whether you build it or we build it. Aero Fence, located at 1800 North, 730 West, or Google us at aero-fence.com.
Hey, it's Glenn Beck. Join Lyle Boss on his Safe Money radio show. He talks about how you can get substantial bonuses on your retirement accounts and so much more. You also can call Lyle right now for his new Safe Money Miracle Book and a complimentary appointment for an inflation-proof audit of your current retirement plan. Call Lyle Boss, president of Boss Financial, 855-355-SAFE. That's 855-355-7233.
Join Lyle Boss and Safe Money Radio, Saturdays at 10 a.m. on KVNU.
For the people.
We are waiting with bated breath for news from the Cache Republican Party meeting an executive committee tonight.
With Jason Williams.
And I'm really excited about this next segment. We have 2 guests here in studio. We're going to talk about something that we've talked about many times here on the show, but from a bit of a different angle.
Weekday afternoons from 4 till 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 a.m. and 102 FM.
Welcome to KVNU's For the People. It is Wednesday, May 22nd. I'm Jason Williams. Bill Walter here in the studio. I had planned to start the show today with an email from the state auditor with an update on, this fight he's picked, basically, with the legislature. But unfortunately, it looks like my computer here in the studio may have died overnight.
Finally bit the dust, I guess. Huh?
I mean, it's been on its last leg for a year, but it looks to be...
Somebody kicked that leg out.
Looks to be dead. So we'll get back to that later in the show once I'm able to get to that. And, of course, I get too much email on my personal account on my phone to find it quickly here. But we have plenty of other things to talk about. It's an interesting development on the clean air front. It's called the Good Neighbor Rule, and it's been around for quite some time. It originated on the East Coast. This is a rule that is enforced and monitored by the EPA and state clean air and clean water divisions. The Good Neighbor Rule is basically a rule that says no state can be so negligent in their own approach to clean air and clean water that it's negatively impacting another state. And that rule does come with consequences, though what they are is not written down. It can be serious. The most serious example came in the 1970s, actually. This was part of Nixon's big pre-Watergate, pre-scandal Nixon was actually a big proponent of the EPA, created the agency as we know it, and it was mostly focused around clean water. America at that time had a polluted rivers problem. We still do in some areas, but it was much worse then. And there was public support for this idea of a national approach, federal government-backed approach to, forcing states to be more responsible and clean up some of those rivers by mainly stopping dumping things into the rivers in the first place. So it's been around a while. What hasn't been around a while is the recent focus on Utah, Colorado, and Arizona, and possibly Nevada, although they haven't at this point, in a statement that was sent to the EPA in response to. So you've got the EPA pressuring them to do something, to improve air and improve water quality and reduce pollution where possible. States are pretty limited in a lot of ways. Parts of Colorado have some geographic challenges, much like parts of Utah, where the people of the state, the policymakers of the state, can only do so much. And at that point, the air currents from other areas are also negatively impacting them. So the EPA, the federal government, has asked these states to do what they can to improve air quality. And that has led to, setting targets 10, 15, 20 years down the road to retire polluting forms of energy generation, coal-fired plants and things like that. Those are a ways off before we see improvements from that, of course. There's also a 2032 goal of carbon capture at some of these more polluting energy-generating plants. So, again, a ways off. Immediately, conservation efforts, cleanup efforts, all of those types of things are funded by states, and there are federal grant programs to do that as well. And overall, it's a good thing. It's been very successful in the United States since the 1970s. First, though, we have two other states pointing the finger at Utah now, Colorado and Arizona, pointing the finger at Utah, saying we are nearing the limit of what we can do to clean up our air because of, air patterns. We're getting all of Utah's dirty air. So we have those inversions in the wintertime, and we talk about them locally. We say things like, that storm came through and it cleaned the air. Well, if you really think this through, it cleaned the air by pushing all of that pollution, those particles in the air, mostly from tailpipes, out to somewhere else. Well, Colorado and Arizona are saying, hi, thank you for that. This comes in the midst of Utah joining with 20 other states in a lawsuit against an EPA rule that has been announced that will take effect, I think, July of this year is the original target. Now, keep in mind, this is a process where everybody has a role to play. The EPA announces the rules, the states sue, the target date comes and goes, a long conversation happens, and everybody knows this is how it works. It's not efficient, but that's actually a good thing. Because bureaucracy gets a bad name, it can actually be beneficial because bureaucracy causing things to be so slow, I think, causes everybody to think things through a bit more. You get less reactionary policy for things that should take a long-term approach and perspective. So the bureaucracy is underway. Utah and 21 other states have sued against those carbon capture goals set for 2032. But this comes as more of an immediate pressure on the state of Utah because the good neighbor rule means that if it is proven that Utah's air is directly contributing to bad air in Denver or bad air in Phoenix or things like that, a structure is already in place that can be employed in which Utah has to start setting money aside to give those other states. The dollar amount is not set. The negotiations would be lengthy. But if this good neighbor rule complaint from Colorado and Arizona is upheld, Utah taxpayers are going to be on the hook for a certain amount, again, as of yet undetermined, but it would be in the millions and millions of dollars, possibly hundreds of millions each year, that Utah, under this good neighbor rule, would then have to gift, basically, to Colorado and Arizona as a, sorry for the bad air, here's some money to help clean it up in your area once it blows out of Utah. Overall, it's making kind of a sorry statement about our legislative approach to this stuff. I get frustrated because we talk a lot here in Utah about this can-do pioneering spirit. Legislators call it the Utah way. And yet when it comes to some of these things that we all should agree we need to do, like, set goals for cleaner air. We know our air in the wintertime and the ozone levels during the summer is unhealthy. That's no mystery. But the response, there seems to be more energy for fighting doing something than there is for a can-do pioneer spirit approach from our lawmakers, not from the public. In survey after survey, the public has said, one, these are important priorities and we should focus on them. You don't have a lot if your air and water is dirty. No matter how beautiful the scenery is, if it's unhealthy to be outside for large portions of the winter and summer, your economy starts to suffer at first. And then after that, you see even more negative effects. But I think for most people, it's more of a personal thing. If you grew up in an area and you're asked in a survey, do you want this area to be polluted? No one answers yes to that, right? So the public is on board. When surveyed, Utahns have been surveyed about some of these long-term goals of carbon capture and at coal-fired plants, or even retiring coal-fired plants eventually. Utahns have been very much on board, though they've said we should do it slowly and carefully so as not to hollow out our energy picture here in the West, which I think is a smart approach. They're on board. The legislature, however, again, seems to only have energy for what, in light of this good neighbor rule possibly being employed that will cost taxpayers at a time, it starts to seem more like perpetual teen angst. You're not the boss of us kind of stuff, rather than doing what is responsible and approaching it from that can-do spirit. Lawmakers like to talk about how Utahns can rise to any challenge, except this one. What do you think? 753-5868. Again, Colorado and Arizona. Arizona is in the process of, and Nevada is thinking about blaming Utah for contributing to their bad air. Once it blows out of our state, that's where it heads, our neighboring states. Thoughts? 753-5868. We'll be back right after this.
Intermountain Budge ENT Clinic has an experienced and caring team of physicians and staff to assist you with all of your ear, nose, and throat concerns, including head and neck surgery. Doctors Kaiser and Wilson and their staff at Intermountain Budge ENT Clinic will work together to provide excellent care and support throughout the entire surgery process, from your pre-op visit to your full recovery. And they accept all insurance. For more information about Doctors Kaiser or Wilson, search Budge Clinic ENT or call 435-716-1420. Local care with Intermountain expertise.
Hey drivers, let's face it, driving can be challenging. From heavy traffic to bad weather, there's always something that keeps us on our toes. Driving is challenging, but car insurance doesn't have to be. This is Matt Robbins with Quality First Insurance, an Alera Group company. As an independent auto owner's insurance agency, we work with top-notch carriers to find the best coverage and the best price. Whether you're a seasoned driver or just starting out, Quality First has your back. 435-752-0101.
The Above and Beyond Salute.
Hello?
Tim Lindsay, we're calling to give you free lunch from Firehouse Subs.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, somebody nominated you for our Above and Beyond Salute and told us about how you've now been for over 20 years the wastewater operator there for Logan City, and you had to have seen some pretty weird things that people have flushed, haven't you?
I've got everything from drugs to money to all kinds of stuff.
The Above and Beyond Salute on News Talk KVNU.
Hi, this is Gordon Deal. Thursday on This Morning, America's First News. Congress has fewer and fewer days in session, meaning President Biden is running out of time to put regulations in place. We'll examine the areas where he's trying to Trump-proof his legacy. Also, how higher interest rates are crushing projects like new apartment buildings. And the teachers tired of being the kids' smartphone police. Thursday on This Morning, America's First News. From 4 to 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM. Your station for news and talk.
Got the computer back. I was telling Bill in the automotive world.
If you just kick it a few times, that it usually responds.
In the automotive world, when it comes to starters and fuel pumps, a lot of times, not always, but most times, you can bang it with a hammer. I'm not kidding. This is actually, talk to any mechanic. They'll tell you they've either done this or recommend doing this. If your fuel pump goes out in a parking lot somewhere, or your starter goes out on a road trip or something like that.
But not really with computer towers.
Well, I don't know. With the starters and the fuel pumps, you've got one more start in there. If you can bang it hard enough with a hammer, you'll get one more start out of it. And then you just can't shut it off until you've got it to the repair shop. I'm worried that might be what we're looking at with this computer. We were able to get it on, but
maybe for one last
talk to engineering
go
about
around.
This. Don't shut it down. All right. That does allow us to talk about this finally. So coming up on the other side of the news, the state auditor, a couple of weeks ago, he started this kind of picking a fight with the legislature, not just for fun, for what he feels is a good reason. We had him here on the show talking about it, but long story short, he was tasked by the legislature without being asked or consulted even on the bill during the last legislative session in a bill sponsored by Representative Kira Birkeland from Morgan and Senator Dan McKay, the floor sponsor in the Senate from Riverton, both Republicans, of the bathroom bill, as it's known. This is a bill that is seeking to solve a problem that has never really been clearly articulated by the sponsors of the bills 3 years in a row. It finally passed this year. And this is a bill that seeks to prevent transgender individuals from using the bathroom of their current gender and force them to use the bathroom of their birth certificate in public facilities, state-owned facilities, schools, things like that. The problem for the state auditor came about in a portion of the bill that tasks his office, which he said when we spoke with him is full of data analysts, former CPAs, numbers people. They are now tasked with managing this reporting website where people can complain. And he said last week when we spoke with him, they'd gotten about 10,000 complaints, all of them frivolous, most of them jokes. And today he says that's up to 12,000. He's released a series of videos, funny videos, over the last 8 days that has kind of triggered the sponsors in the legislature, Dan McKay and Kira Birkeland, angry at the state auditor for this. State auditor, by the way, is also a Republican. John Dougal was a longtime representative in the House and then moved to the state auditor's job a few years ago. He's currently running for Congress in House District 3, a race we won't get to weigh in on here in northern Utah. So last week we spoke with him as a state auditor only, not candidate, and he said his objection here is that his office's time is being wasted for what he calls a culture war bill. He said that he wants the Republican Party to become the party of real ideas and common sense again. He said that's the party he grew up in, and he's running that way as a candidate in District 3. But he is frustrated, he said, with these culture war bills. And he's more frustrated that his staff is now spending most of their days, some of them, on this. So through a series of funny videos where he labels himself the bathroom monitor, all of them filmed in the bathroom, he's been kind of poking some fun at this bill and the legislators who passed it and sponsored it. Today, in a statement, a more serious statement, the state auditor released this. He said, over the past 3 weeks, the Office of the State Auditor has received and screened more than 12,000 complaints related to alleged violations under House Bill 257. Unfortunately, there is clearly a misunderstanding still of our office's duties under that very statute. To reiterate, we only investigate alleged violations of the statute by government entities. So individual experiences, which is mainly what they're getting, are actually not something they can investigate. Utah does have laws against voyeurism, and anyone who sends in a picture or a video, which some have done, from inside a bathroom of another person will be reported to law enforcement because that statute also exists. An oversight, he said, in the bill sponsor's way of writing the legislation that encourages people to violate another state law against voyeurism. So he said any pictures or videos sent in have been turned over abruptly to law enforcement for investigation of voyeurism, i.e. don't take pictures and video in the bathroom of other people, folks. He goes on in the statement today, State Auditor John Dougal says of the more than 12,000 complaints received so far, the majority overwhelmingly are frivolous at best and jokes and hoaxes at worst. Indeed, we have identified only 5 complaints for which we could even find the weakest of justification to provide greater review. While none of those 5 complaints detail any clear allegations or even dates and locations of the supposed violation of this new statute, each complaint might reflect a good faith effort to attempt to make a plausible allegation of a government entity's violation of statute with signage, etc., at a publicly funded facility. So these 5 cases are under review. Again, the state auditor says that is 5 out of more than 12,000 complaints in the last 14 days. This is taking up a lot of my office's time. And again, I, as state auditor, was not consulted at all on this legislation. He's asking the sponsors, the governor, the legislature at large, to address this in interim or even special session. He said whether to determine whether further allegations require investigation is going to require even more time, as required by the legislature's unjustified mandate in House Bill 257. The state auditor is angry, to say the least. And what's been weirdest about this is that the sponsors, in response to this, have gone into hiding, literally. So what happens next? I don't know. But, man, get your popcorn, at least. The state auditor obviously plans to not drop this anytime soon. I've posted a link on our Facebook page to the web version of the state auditor's press release today. And we'll be back after the news with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 4:35, and the news is brought to you by Mount Logan Laundry. Summer programs for active seniors being offered by the Logan Parks and Recreation Department are scheduled to begin June 3rd. Those programs will include the city's walking club, pickleball tournaments, social events, and technology classes and nutrition classes. City officials promise that the summer activities will provide a series of fun and engaging experiences for active adults 60 years of age and older. The local walking club will meet every Monday morning from 8 to 10. Social gatherings will be held every third Tuesday of the month. The pickleball competition will be held every Wednesday morning from 7 to 10 a.m. Nutrition classes, especially geared for senior citizens, will be in session beginning at 9 a.m. on every third Wednesday of the month. The topic of those classes will be digestion and detox in June, followed by sessions exploring hormone health in July and healthy skin and hair in August. Finally, the classes on technology, sponsored by Logan City, will be held at 10:15 a.m. on every second Thursday of the month, starting on June 13th and continuing through August 8th. City officials say that walk-ins are welcome, but registration for the entire series can be accomplished at the city's website. Many high school students in the United States are sensitive to the ongoing climate crisis, and some are demanding more paths that allow them to work on solutions to the planet's warming. Colleges and universities are responding. Some have rebranded traditional sustainability and environmental science tracks as climate programs or degrees, while others are introducing and marketing climate centers and certificates to attract a wave of climate-minded students. In these programs, students learn how the atmosphere is changing as a result of burning coal, oil, and gas. They also learn the way crops will shift with the warming planet and the role of renewable energy in cutting use of fossil fuels. Other early movers that created programs, majors, minors, and certificates dedicated to climate change include Utah State University, the University of Washington, University of Montana, Yale University, Northern Vermont University, and UCLA. KBNU News Time is 4:38.
Make laundry a snap with the large load washers and dryers at Mount Logan Laundry. Rather than 8 to 10 loads at home, get the job done in 1 or 2 with their 55 or 80-pound washers and 80-pound dryers that are perfect for sleeping bags, comforters, and other big items. Mount Logan Laundry has free Wi-Fi and drop-off service, plus they're open until midnight. Mount Logan Laundry really is the cleanest spot in town. Find them at 5th East and 9th North in Logan or in Brigham City on the corner of 1st East and 7th South.
ABC News, I'm Daria Oldinger. Almost 2 years since the massacre at Robb Elementary, authorities in Uvalde, Texas, reached a settlement with the families of the victims. It includes $2 million in payments and promises to better train police.
These were the last lines of defense for these children, but they were failed long before the shooting.
Attorney Josh Koskoff represented the families of the 19 students and 2 teachers killed. Former presidential candidate Nikki Haley told a conservative think tank that she'll vote for former President Trump, saying President Biden has been, in her words, a catastrophe on a number of issues. The judge overseeing Mr. Trump's classified documents case heard 2 motions today to dismiss the charges against the former president's co-defendant and chief aide, Walt Nauta. A Michigan farm worker is the second person in the U.S. to be infected with bird flu. This is ABC News.
KBNU weather for tonight. Rain showers developing, slight chance of thunderstorms this evening, then a chance of rain and snow showers after midnight. Mostly cloudy, little or no accumulation. Overnight low in the mid-30s. Slight chance of rain and snow showers in the morning, then a slight chance of rain showers in the afternoon. Partly sunny, cooler, high in the upper 50s. It's been to 69. It's 67 right now at KBNU. If you are seeing dandelion, thistle, clover, morning glory, or other weeds in your grass, call the Lawn Doctor, 753-LAWN, or go to lawndoctor.com. You can always get more news at CashValleyDaily.com. Let's check Wall Street now with Edward Jones.
This is Tron Arnold of Edward Jones, bringing the daily financial market report for May 22nd. Stocks decline ahead of NVIDIA earnings. After the S&P and the NASDAQ hit new record highs yesterday, equity markets finished lower today. There were no major economic releases, but the release of the Fed meeting minutes sparked higher for longer interest rate worries. Shares of Target declined 7% following earnings, with the company noting that consumers feel pressured to make the most of their budget. The release noted a decline in discretionary categories, but also pointed out that discretionary sales trends improved versus prior quarters. Elsewhere, European equity markets were lower after the latest UK data showed inflation slowing less than expected last month. WTI oil prices were also lower at $78, while government bond yields rise modestly as markets continue to price in a delayed start to rate cuts. The Dow was down 201 points, closing at 39,672. The Nasdaq was down 31 points at 16,802. The S&P was down 14 points, closing at 5307. In stocks of local interest, Autoliv was down 62 cents at 124.96. Chevron is down $2.40 at 157.57. Dominion Energy was down 44 cents at 53.50. Home Depot is down $5.56 at 330.59. Kroger is up 26 cents at 53.92. Lowe's was down $3.73 at 221.13. McDonald's was down 10 cents at 265.77. Microsoft was up $1.48 at 430.52. Nucor is down $1.02 at 171.10. Philip Morris was up 84 cents at 101.07, and Walmart was up 10 cents at 65.25. In commodity markets, the price of crude oil was down $1.34, closing at $77.32, and the spot price of gold was down $44.90, closing at $2,381. This has been today's financial market report, brought to you by Edward Jones and Tron Arnold, member SIPC, serving individual investors with personalized attention and long-term financial advice at 135 North Main in Logan. If you want more information, feel free to give us a call at 435-753-2915.
Now is the time to get your vehicle's transmission ready for those hot summer months, and AMCO can help. AMCO Transmissions is located at 75 East, 2000 North. They are the business you can trust. Their Safeguard transmission service is the industry standard. Kurt Zollinger and his team will replace your vehicle's transmission fluids, do an inspection, and test drive to give you peace of mind when you're on vacation. AMCO Transmission in Logan. Online at amcoutah.com. See store for details.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Last week on the show, the timing of this just left one of the few times I can honestly say I've been sitting here in the studio speechless. But last week during our regular monthly Speak to the Mayor segment, which is generally with Logan City Mayor Holly Daines, Mayor Daines was traveling last week, and so in her place we had, it was a couple of things. We planned to speak with Library Director Karen Clark. She fell ill and was off work those 2 days that we were doing the interview last week, and so they drew straws at the city, I think. They deny this, but I think this is what they do. And Police Chief Simmons lost. He drew the short straw, and he had to come down, sit here in the studio with us for an hour. It was a great conversation. He brought a lot of data with him, and my fault, really, we never got to any of it. But we talked about everything from his philosophy towards policing, to the way policing in Cache Valley has changed over the years. Some of the concerns that we didn't have 20 years ago, concerns coming that they're already kind of prepping for that we don't have now, but will 20 years from now. It was an amazing conversation, basically, and I recommend anyone concerned about the future of crime and policing in Cache Valley in the future and today, go listen to it. I think we'll find it encouraging. I did. And what a great opportunity to be able to just sit down and have that kind of conversation with a police chief. Very frank, and he was very obliging with the whole thing, and said afterwards he had a good time. So, but Chief Jeff Simmons was in the studio that day from 4 to 5. As we wrapped up at 5, we were just, making pleasantries, saying goodbye. He was collecting his things, and a member of our news team, Will Philwright, called. Bill answered the phone, and Will said, I'm going to do a live update here during your news break. There's been a shooting down on the island. The chief, because he was here in our studio from 4 to 5, had turned his phone off. So this was news to him as well. We now know, of course, this was a pretty serious situation, an incident that took place at Denzel Stewart Nature Park around 4:30, middle of our first hour, while the chief was here with his phone off because he was on the radio. And we now know the story was Logan City Police Department officers traded gunfire with an individual named Adam Scott Phillips, a Layton man who in that incident was fatally shot while allegedly attempting to meet for sex with an undercover officer who had been posing as a teenage girl in a sting operation. Investigation of the incident is now in the hands of the Cache County Attorney Office and Cache County Attorney Taylor Sorensen. Detectives from the Northern Utah Critical Incident Protocol Team, a multi-agency committee, basically, will also explore every detail of the shooting. This is standard practice in Utah whenever there's an officer-involved shooting. So while waiting for those two investigations to play out, the police chief spoke to the incident. And again, I'm not sure about you, Bill. I know I didn't know what to say. We've never had anything like that occur here in the now 16-plus years I've been coming into the studio every day. But we had the chief in the studio. He had his phone off to, be here on the radio for this really great conversation we had. And again, I really recommend everyone go get that podcast and give it a listen if you missed it live. Just very rare that you get
Very
to.
good interview, yeah.
Yeah, just a great conversation, filled the entire hour, and really respect him for making the time to do it and entertaining my questions. It was illuminating in a lot of ways. But again, while he was with us, he had his phone off, and this incident occurred at about 4:30. We were on from 4 to 5. So at 5 o'clock, our news team basically alerted him that this incident occurred because Will had heard it from connections to Logan City police officers he has, and that was kind of how it was announced to the chief. He quickly turned his phone on and said, yeah, they've been trying to reach me, and he started making calls. We shook hands quickly, and he exited the studio. I felt really bad, even though it was a great conversation. Just the timing was... the odds are astronomically against that ever happening.
I mean, in other cities with police forces.
Yeah. The odds,
even in Salt Lake, that happens several times a year.
Yeah.
Officer-involved shootings many times. I'm not sure, but
sure,
pretty rare up here in Cache County.
Been years, I think. And the odds that it would happen while we have the chief in the studio with his phone off are just, I was speechless. I didn't know what to say to him. I apologized. He said, oh, you've got nothing to apologize for. Again, it was a great conversation. It was great use of his time. I mean, don't get me wrong. He did not waste his time here that day. We talked about community engagement, things that we can do as residents of the Valley to make life for police officers easier, but also to improve relationships with law enforcement in general. And we talked a little bit about National Law Enforcement Week, which was being celebrated last week. So, I mean, honestly, it was an important conversation. It was amazing to have him here for it. But the fact that it happened while this, once every year or couple of years event took place is just, still leaves me kind of stunned. To that point, Chief Simmons has spoken out about the incident, the officer-involved shooting at again, Denzel Stewart Nature Park last week around 4:30 a week ago. And Charlie Schilt was able to talk to him about it. Again, 2 investigations, standard practice. 2 investigations will now play out. One by the Cache County Attorney's Office, the other by this statewide committee of sorts, the Northern Utah, half the statewide Northern Utah Critical Incident Protocol Team. This doesn't mean necessarily that anything bad happened. Well, I mean, obviously something bad happened. Someone's dead. And even the officers would prefer this type of thing always play out differently, even dealing with a heinous crime like soliciting sex from what the individual shot thought was a 13-year-old, allegedly. This affects everyone. It's a traumatic experience for the officers involved, for the families affected, everything. And the chief said, as these 2 investigations play out, again, standard practice for these investigations to happen, just dotting all the I's, crossing all the T's. Simmons said, with the information he had so far, first he said, this kind of thing is not something we're used to in Logan, obviously. And he said, thankfully, we don't have this type of incident happen here very often. And he said that he thought the last one took place 8 or 10 years ago. I thought there was one a couple of years ago, but that might have been the sheriff's department. Anyway, he said our officers acted with courage and bravery in that incident. And he said upon reviewing the facts as presented to him, he said that he had every bit of confidence that the results of this, not quoting him directly here, but basically responding to the 2 investigations, he said that he had every bit of confidence necessary that the results of the investigations will show the officers acted in a way that was necessary, that this wasn't their first choice, but at a certain point it was the only way they could respond. So I'm guessing what we'll find out, again, a guess, is that the officers did not fire first. He said, again, our officers acted with courage and bravery in that incident. This also happening during National Law Enforcement Week. Chief Simmons said that was on his mind. He said, that we're trying to emphasize that we're peace officers and that law enforcement is part of what we do, but it's not everything we do. And he said that wasn't lost on him, that deadly force had to be used in an incident during a week that is supposed to be about emphasizing that peace officer side of things. So, it's a really tragic set of timing and circumstances. Chief Simmons did praise his officers in general and those directly involved. In a speech he delivered at the Logan City Police Department banquet on May 14th, he said, "You are resisted." Speaking to his officers, he said, "You were resisted, spit upon, headbutted, sworn at, threatened, criticized, second-guessed, falsely accused, denigrated, maligned, rebuked, abused, assaulted, and even forgotten. Yet you were always here, ready to serve, often the very people who are opposed to everything you hold dear in your hearts. You do all of that with respect and civility, patiently taking the barbs and insults that come your way." Said he couldn't be more pleased to call every one of them family and friends. Again, that was the night before this incident, and we had him here in the studio. So, yeah, all around, just what a sequence of events and timing. But I bring this up because this was part of our conversation, and I really, as Chief Simmons left the studio that day in a rush due to this incident that occurred while he was here talking to us, I didn't get a chance to really say this to him, but one thing that really struck me about our conversation is he and I had quite a lengthy conversation about holding two ideas in your head at the same time. That sometimes when it comes to law enforcement and movements geared towards accountability for law enforcement, like Black Lives Matter, like a police accountability movement that exists here in Utah to make police departments more transparent, Chief Simmons says, look, these types of things make us better, meaning law enforcement. We shouldn't oppose them. We shouldn't be against accountability. We should be as angry as every member of a Black Lives Matter protest when we see an officer act outside of good judgment or even legal behavior when it comes to some of the shootings we've seen in the news. There was one recently, for example, in Texas, where an airman, Marine airman, was at 2 a.m, someone's pounding on his door. He answered the door with his pistol in his hand. I think a lot of people might do that, especially if they're trained as a military veteran to use the weapon. And the officers, when he opened the door with the pistol in his hand, just shot him. He didn't even raise the gun. There's video. Those types of incidents, Chief Simmons, referring to those, said that's bad for law enforcement. And members of law enforcement should be as angry when they see something like that as anyone protesting a Black Lives Matter protest. But he said at the same time, that shouldn't wipe out acknowledging that this is a job like no other, something that I fully believe. I don't think most of us can imagine what it would be like to spend your day on an 8, 10, even sometimes 12-hour shift. For most of us, we think, they're out pulling people over for speeding or rolling stops or parking and things like that. But remember, each one of those incidents could become a deadly interaction for that officer. Imagine the general anxiety hanging around that job every day. I think we can hold both of those things in our head. Neither one should cancel out the other. And it was great to be able to talk to the chief about that. So, Chief Simmons, if you're out there listening, mad respect. And very sorry this incident occurred last week. It'd be a great world if these things never happened. But, yeah, it's not the world we live in. We'll be back right after this.
I'm Frank Myler, candidate for Utah State Attorney General, and I approve this message. This is the first real chance I've had to talk directly to voters, because leading up to the state convention, I actually was finishing up a 12-day jury trial, filed a 10th Circuit Court of Appeals brief, and filed a brief in the U.S. Supreme Court fighting the feds in eastern Utah. I was more concerned about protecting the rights of citizens than playing politics. I'm prepared day one to help defend civil cases and to prosecute criminal cases, and I will be there to fight the feds and push back against their overreach. This is what I focused on as an attorney, and this is what an attorney general actually should be. Utah needs an AG with trusted experience, an AG who will make sure that the law is interpreted and enforced correctly. When you get your ballot, vote for Frank Myler.
This ad is paid for by the Frank Myler for Attorney General campaign.
As we live longer, age really is just a number, but retirement is so much more than one. Edward Jones wants to know what you want out of retirement. Working together, you can look at the big picture and make a strategy to help you reach your goal. Because you can't prepare for the unexpected if you don't know where you're headed. Call one of the 7 branch locations in Cache Valley or go to edwardjones.com to get started today. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Coming up on the Thursday edition of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show, looking at the latest in the polls for Biden v. Trump and also some key Senate battles. Do Republicans still have all the wind at their backs, plus Clay?
We'll break down the absolute latest on the Trump lawfare. It just keeps getting crazier and crazier. All that and more. Thursday edition, Clay and Buck.
10 to 1 on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM at 610 AM.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Stick around. We're doing our best to get to every candidate we can, which between their schedules and our schedule is more difficult than it sounds. But we're going to do it, I swear. We spoke with Brad Wilson yesterday. We'll speak with John Curtis soon, the two front runners basically in the United States Senate race. Reaching out to Trent Stagg's team as well. Those campaign seems to be fading a bit. He is in the race, so we'll speak with him again. But we have a lot of county candidates, too. So we're doing our best to continue to book them, and I'll keep you updated on the schedule as it comes to be. But we'll get back to our candidate spotlights. We haven't done one of these yet this week. We had quite a few last week with Allison Goulet, a candidate for Cache County District 2, Cache County Council District 2, joining us at 5:40 this afternoon. So stick around for that and more in hour 2 after this here on KVNU Logan.